I challenge you, stay focused and let the words move you. Some of the most beautiful poetry you'll ever read here. Watch this.
The dove descending breaks the air with flame of incandescent terror, of which the tongues declare the one discharge from sin and error. The only hope or else despair lies in the choice of pyre or pyre, to be redeemed from fire by fire. Who then devised the torment? Love. Love is the unfamiliar name behind the hands that wove the intolerable shirt of flame, which human power cannot remove. We only live, only suspire, consumed by either fire or fire.
Now the brilliance of this, I mean, we could have done this with almost every line of four quartets, but just notice it. The dove descending breaks the air. The dove descending breaks the air. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. The flame of incandescent terror. Notice again, playing a little bit like Shakespeare liked to do. Of which the tongues declare. Again, notice playing around, right? The one discharged from sin and error. Brilliant, brilliant. And of course, rhyme scheme here as well. All right, let's play the game really quickly to try and figure out what's going on. Remember now, with this section 4, in Burnt Norton, we had the unearthly light that glistened off of the kingfisher's wing, representative of God. In East Coker, we had the wounded surgeon who plied the steel, representative of Christ. In Dry Salvages, part 4, we had the lady, of course Mary, asked to intercede for all of us. That's, again, Mary. Here, all three of the above are somehow subsumed in the Holy Spirit, represented by fire. Some have even gone so far as to say these are the most challenging lines of not only maybe Little Gidding, but also all of four quartets, because in this set of lines, these 14 little simple lines, you, the reader, are challenged to choose. Let's pay attention to it. Now here we're back to doves, only before it was the dove who was a plane that was dropping bombs at line 83. The dove descending breaks the air. We are familiar now with Christian theology and the idea of the Pentecostal fire, as we said, with flame of incandescent terror. Now it's interesting that the word terror gets used here, but sometimes a pleasing terror is what Byron called the ocean, right? Saying in his apostrophe to the ocean, of which the tongues declare, the tongues of fire that sit above the heads in Acts 2, 3, 4, right? The one discharged from sin and error. We're back to line 168 and the word sin used again. The only hope or else despair lies in the choice of pyre or pyre. We could make the argument that all of four quartets has been about this challenge to the reader to make a choice. You have a choice. You either can decide to live a life with no hope, everything sucks and then we die, or you can adopt another view. And this is obviously where T.S. Eliot wants you to go. You could make the argument that at the end of Wasteland, although the poem ends with the word shanti and peace, there's not a lot of peace and there's certainly not a lot of hope. Here, we got a different project maybe going on, right? Lies in the choice of pyre or pyre to be redeemed from fire by fire. And of course, the use of the word pyre makes us go back to ancient literature, doesn't it? Achilles and Patroclus and in the Eliot in regards to fire, the funeral pyre. Of course, we know that Dido and the whole thing in the Aeneid with pyre and fire. It's a very old idea. And of course, we always in biblical language think about Abraham and Isaac and the potential sacrifice that's offered of Isaac and all of that. So you've got all of these kind of ideas that are coming now together. Now, line 209 is the one place where I like T.S. Eliot's reading of that line better than I like Alec Guinness's, because I think there needs to be a pause in this line. Read it with me. Who then devised the torment? Now, of course, that's the question of Dante, his Inferno, abandon hope, all ye who enter here, but also love, justice devised the torment. But here, notice, the way that it was read is to not pause. I think you've got to pause a little bit longer. Who then devised the torment? The answer is love. And in many ways, this is the key line. Notice capitalized love. Love is the unfamiliar name. Notice name capitalized. Behind the hands that wove the intolerable shirt of flame, which human power cannot remove. Now this, I think Pyre takes us back to the classics, the Greek classics. Certainly the intolerable shirt of flame does. Remember Hercules consumed by that poisoned shirt of Nicias, right? Because of that whole thing of human passion and lust and all of that, right? We only live, only suspire. The word only, again, like the word here, you can go back through the poem, it's over and over again. Consumed by either fire or fire. You're going to be consumed by something. You just got to choose what it is that you're going to be consumed by, right? Well, this is back to our Dante, isn't it, right? I mean, which fire do you want? Of course, for Dante, you'll remember Canto 26:48, in hell, it burns for punishment. But in Purgatorio, Canto 27, line 27, fire is the refining, the redeeming, right? You'll also remember, we talked in our conversations about the Bhagavad Gita as wisdom's fire provides the power to cleanse and purify, Gita 4:38. Well, let's finish it 2a. Well, you know, I think we could make the argument that love's fire lies behind all suffering. I like the way Kenneth Paul Kramer says this in Redeeming Time, so I'm just going to read it because it's so brilliant. It's brilliantly written. I would recommend the book for you if you're serious in your study of four quartets. I've borrowed heavily from this as well as other scholars, but I think Paul Kramer's got it dead on. Look what he says. He says, while love makes a somewhat surprising appearance in a poem that brought us through several literal and figurative purgations and hells, if we look back at each fourth movement, it's possible to discern this trace of the poet's interrelated intuitions that support this assertion of needing to make a choice. In Bert Norton, he apprehends a natural epiphany and illumination of light reflected off the kingfisher's wing at the still point of the turning world. His Coker shifts to an image of the wounded surgeon who practices the sharp compassion of the healer's art, as readers are invited to participate in Good Friday's frigid purgatorial fires. The Dry Salve Ages then focuses on the selfless action of the lady whose shrine stands on the promontory and who is both queen of heaven and daughter of her son. In Little Gidding, these are drawn together in a redemptive, purifying fire. That fire, the compound, the illuminating fire of Mary, Krishna, Christ, burns at the still point of compassionate love. Well, I find that compelling reading and observations. At 2b, the symbol, the dove of peace, obviously love. At 3a, well, Acts 2 from the New Testament we've mentioned, as well as, of course, Hercules. And don't put that shirt on because the strongest man in the world was ruined by a woman who knew how to make a shirt, and it all goes back to lust and all of that. Hercules, in many ways, obviously kind of represents that guy who is just driven by his lusts, right? And in the end, it destroys him, right? At 3b, how about this one? Do you believe that love is a choice? Why not? What are your thoughts about that one? Okay. So now we turn to the very final section. This is part 5, lines 216 through the end, 262, or 841 to 886, 886 lines in the entire four quartets, depending on how you're keeping your count. Okay, we're going to say for our notes, notice that this part 5 is, there's two conclusions going on here. Yeah, it's the end of Little Gidding, no question, but it's also the last lines of four quartets. It's the last lines that T.S. Eliot would publish in his poetic life. Let's take a look now and get a sense of what is going on here. We're obviously going to be focusing on the harmony. Remember, the final part of all these poems is trying to bring some kind of summation. We're going to be looking for the harmony, the unity, and we'll even pay attention to the very last word of the poem and of the poems of four quartets. Here we go. Try one more time. Focus, concentrate, conquer monkey mind. Let's see how well you do.
What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. And every phrase and sentence that is right, where every word is at home, taking its place to support the others, the word neither diffident nor ostentatious, an easy commerce of the old and the new, the common word exact without vulgarity, the formal word precise but not pedantic, the complete consort dancing together. Every phrase and every sentence is an end and a beginning, every poem an epitaph. And any action is a step to the block, to the fire, down the sea's throat, or to any illegible stone. And that is where we start. We die with the dying. See, they depart, and we go with them. We are born with the dead. See, they return, and bring us with them. The moment of the rose and the moment of the yew tree are of equal duration. A people without history is not redeemed from time, for history is a pattern of timeless moments. So, while the light fails on a winter's afternoon, in a secluded chapel, history is now and England. With the drawing of this love and the voice of this calling, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Through the unknown, remembered gate, when the last of earth left to discover is that which was the beginning, at the source of the longest river, the voice of the hidden waterfall, and the children in the apple tree, not known because not looked for, but heard, half heard, in the stillness between two waves of the sea. Quick now, here, now, always. A condition of complete simplicity, costing not less than everything. And all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, when the tongues of flame are infolded into the crown knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one.
All right, let's turn now to the fifth movement of this beautifully symphonically created text, and let's talk a little bit about how the fifth movement of all of the previous poems have played a role in setting us up for this study. Notice, in Bert Norton, for example, we had the coexistence of words and silence, the coexistence of beginning and end, the coexistence of movement and stillness. In East Coker, we had a further union, deeper union, right? In other words, being still and moving. In Dry Salvages, we had the impossible, or an impossible union between spheres of transcendence and the historic. Now, if the beginning of poetry is silence, its end is wisdom. So let's turn now to the wisdom of this text and get a sense now at the end of our conversation together, which, can I just say this out loud? You guys have been amazing to hang with me and to enjoy, I hope enjoy, I certainly have, this study. Let's begin at lines 216 to 241. By the way, Eliot wrote in a preface about the Christian mystics, he said, quote, "They live in us, even as we die in them." So we have a double movement here of time and important events, right? Retrieval and renewal. And as we get into this, we're going to kind of see this pendulum movement that we've seen all the way through. What, he says, line 216 and following, what we call, we again, the use of the word we includes you, just like Whitman loves to do in Leaves of Grass. What we call the beginning is often the end. He loves this word often, doesn't he? The fallibilist position is there, right? Not all the time, but often. We call that the end. Well, this is the opening lines, obviously, and the final lines of East Coker, right, comes to mind. The end is where we start from, as opposed to East Coker. Remember, part 5, lines 192, home is where we start from, right? The end is where we start from. And every phrase and sentence that is right, and then there's a parenthetic that's going to run from 219 to 225, and it's going to be a set-off observation. So we'll study what's inside, and then we'll come back to look at the whole thing. Where every word is at home. Notice we use the word home here. It's an echoing back to East Coker, part 5, line 192. Where every word is at home. What is perfect poetry? What is great writing? Where every word is at home, taking its place. Again, why these prepositions all matter throughout our study. It's all about place. Where are you, right? To support the others. Everything works together. The word, neither diffident nor ostentatious. Some have laughed that he uses the word ostentatious because some have said, well, this is a lot of ostentatious poetry, quite frankly. I don't think so. I think that once we get into the study closely, we start to grow comfortable with T.S. Eliot's language. I don't see it as that ostentatious at all, right? Diffident or ostentatious. Although, by the way, this is almost like a Platonic ideal. And maybe Eliot is admitting, okay, I know sometimes I break these rules. Notice he says as well about great poetry or great writing, an easy commerce. Back to the word easy from when he was talking with his compound goes. Easy commerce of the old and the new. The common word exact, without vulgarity. Eliot is definitely highbrow. Let's leave the... We're not going to find any F words in this poem, in other words. The formal word, precise, but not pedantic. Which takes us to East Coker, right? Lines 69, 70, paraphrastic, blah, 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 and all of that, right? The complete consort, dancing together. And all of a sudden you kind of go, oh, I get it. So what he's saying is, about good writing, it all fits together. What he's saying about communities, they all fit together. What he's saying about an individual, all fits together. Right? The tripartite understanding of Plato's, wait a minute, we said, you read Four Quartets as that struggle between two wars, the political war, we can all commune. Which sounds strange to say in the world that we live in today, and yet this is the ideal. The literary, it all fits together. The best writing is the writing that all fits together. And of course the spiritual, well, that's been the whole point of reading Four Quartets, right, for T.S. Eliot. Now go back to it, as I said to you. Notice at line 219, it begins with, and sentence, and every phrase and sentence that is right, and then it picks up again at line 226. Every phrase and every sentence is an end and a beginning. Which is a very interesting thing to say, right? Okay. Every poem, he says at line 227, is an epitaph. Oh, think about that, right? We read these lines and we go, wow, Eliot was coming to the end of his life and writing life, and he knew it. These are the last words he ever wrote to publish. I wonder what he's going to say. And any action as a step to the block, you could be killed for it, assassinated, to the fire, down the sea's throat, or the sea's lips, we heard earlier, or to an illegible stone. Back to stones, maybe the Rosetta Stone. And that is where we start. Back up at line 218. Line 230, we die with the dying. Remember, every breath is a death. See, line 231, the word see gets repeated at line 233. See, they depart, and we go with them. We are born with the dead. See, they return and bring us with them, the cycles. The moment of the rose and the moment of the yew tree. The rose represents life, Christianity. The yew tree, death, renewal, are of equal duration. Of course, we're back to Burnt Norton, line 5, all time is unredeemable. A people without history is not redeemed from time. Again, Burnt Norton, line 5. For history is a pattern, as Four Quartets has been a pattern, of timeless moments. So while the light fades, on a winter's afternoon, we think of Hardy and his darkling thrush. In a secluded chapel, little Gidding. History is now. Such an important word in Four Quartets. And England. You can see, by the way, lines 40 and 55, again, using this word England. You can see why English readers loved this poem. Then notice at line 240, 241, with the drawing of this love and the voice of this calling, a couple of things. Notice that we do have no punctuation at the end of this one. Well, what's going on here? Well, this comes from a very important mystic document, the Cloud of Unknowing, as it's called, an anonymous writer here. This is a hinge line, many have called it, where you've got the love and the calling, and here T.S. Eliot's going to bring now it all together. The line from the cloud of unknowing runs like this, from chapter 2, line 117. A weary and wretched heart indeed is one fast asleep in sloth, which is not awakened by the drawing power of his love and the voice of his calling. So it's literally, notice, Eliot is going to quote literally from the cloud of unknowing, but he doesn't put parentheses around it. And then it leads to the final lines of the poem. Let's spend time there. This will read almost like what we see in Zen Beginner's Mind. We shall not cease from exploration. I'm going to hold back from just making every reference to every line from Four Quartets, earlier lines. If you have been a close, astute reader of this poem, and I think if we've done anything, I hope well, it's that I hope that our study leads you to pick up this poem and want to read it again and again and again. I promise you, as you read this poem, you're going to see new things, as all great literature will happen for us. But when you look at this set of lines at the very end, that is to say, lines 242 to 262, when you look at these last 20 lines, pay close attention to all of the ways that so many of the major themes are subsumed. I'll just mention a few. We shall not cease from exploration. Farewell, voyager. And the end of all our exploring, the journey, the Odyssey, will be to arrive where we started. This is, of course, where we started our lecture. I wanted to do the very thing that Eliot is doing. And know the place for the first time. You learn new things about the things you've always known, and then all of a sudden, it becomes a brand new kind of place for you, wherever you are, right? The quest, we return with knowledge, right? That's the ancient motif, isn't it? Through the unknown, remember gate, right? This is that beautiful word picture at the